Good evening and welcome. Tonight, you're invited on a quiet journey that will lead you through the bustling alleyways, smoky chaos, and opulent halls of ancient Rome. We'll begin at the lowest rungs of Roman daily life, among creaking slums and communal toilets. The world you're about to enter is long gone. The sounds of sandals on stone, long faded. All that remains is the echo quiet, muffled by century sand, the rhythm of lives once lived. Then we'll slowly ascend through disaster and excavation, myth and memory until we reach the candlelit tables of Rome's most powerful elites. But do not worry. Though our path winds through fire and ash, filth and fortune, you are safe here, far from the noise and grime. So, take a slow breath. Let your body sink gently into stillness, and imagine yourself in the belly of the Roman Empire. Imagine yourself standing on a crooked wooden balcony, 5 stories above a narrow alleyway that barely sees the sun. Below, a tangle of voices echoes off stone and plaster merchants shouting prices, children chasing dogs, the muffled clatter of pots and pans. You re in a Roman insulo, one of the countless multi-story apartment blocks that house the city's working poor. The walls around you are thin, the mortar already flaking. The floor creaks with each step. Somewhere, water drips, slow and steady. You can smell oil and smoke, some from last night's cooking fire, some from the nearby popine or taverns where the clink of dice never quite stops. Fire was a constant fear. Many insulae were made of wood, and lamps fueled by oil or tallow flickered dangerously beside straw bedding. Early in the morning, before the sun became too harsh, you might carry your clay jug down to the nearest lacus and wait in line. And the Tiber River itself sluggish and brown, especially in summer. And though Rome had public baths, soap as we know it was nt common. Most Romans scrubbed with sand or olive oil before scraping their skin clean with a curved bronze tool called a strigil. Beneath, a trench of flowing water carried waste away, while a secondary channel ran in front where communal sponges on sticks sat soaking, ready for reuse. Musicians drifted through alleys with lyres and red pipes. Priests passed with incense, and even the occasional donkey, painted blue and draped in flowers, might appear as part of a local festival or procession. These buildings were hastily built, often by profit-hungry landlords who crammed tenants into subdivided rooms, sometimes renting them by the night or even by the hour. You worked long hours, perhaps as a porter, a scribe's assistant, or a street seller hawking garum, Rome's famously pungent fish sauce. And in the evening, if coin permitted, you might eat a hot meal at a thermopolium, a Roman fast food stall, before returning to your crowded sleeping space, surrounded by the coughs and snores of your neighbors. Water was precious, but not absent. Public fountains dotted the city, fed by Rome's great aqueducts. The cobblestones beneath your feet are slick in places, not just with rain. Firefighters, often slaves or poorly paid men, tried their best, but water was scarce and the wind unforgiving. But with runoff from food stalls, waste from tenement windows, and the droppings of animals that shared every space with humans, the city burned more than once. But perhaps the most vivid corner of this life lies in the public latrine. It grows heavier, filled with smoke of another kind, wider, wilder, and more destructive. You fall asleep on a mat on the 3rd floor of your building, when fire didn't simply flicker from a window, but consumed the city itself. There is no fire escape, no alarm, no guarantee, and clung to whatever sense of stability could be found in family, faith, and the rituals of everyday life. Lives too often lost in the grandeur of marble statues and imperial names. You're exhausted from the day's labor. Your eyes close. Picture it. A long stone bench with keyhole-shaped openings carved side by side. No partitions, no privacy. The smell was omnipresent, not just from the latrines themselves, but from the open drains in the streets, the animals that roamed freely. You walk past the tanner's quarter, and the air thickens with the pungent odor of urine used to treat Hydzon's spoiled fats. And yet, amid this grit, life thrived. In the narrow streets, bakers' ovens never stopped. Vendors sold bowls of lentils or bread with cheese. Children played knucklebones beside carts selling honey cakes. There were rhythms to this life. You rose early to beat the lines at the public water points. And always, the fires. Sometimes small, accidental and overturned oil lamp, a kitchen left unattended, but sometimes great, consuming entire blocks. By imperial decree, fire brigades existed, but their reach was limited. So, imagine it. And you awaken to shouting, to the crackle of heat. Smoke is already rising through the floorboards. In these moments, life in ancient Rome was not just uncomfortable, it was precarious. And yet, the poor endured. They prayed to household gods, left small offerings at roadside shrines in the shadow of temples and palaces. Their lives unfolded, lives filled with hardship, but also with laughter, stubbornness, and small joys. They are worth remembering. And now, we leave the slums behind. The air changes. Let us walk through the streets of Rome on one of its darkest weeks. Imagine yourself walking slowly through narrow stone streets, flanked by low walls and open courtyards. The sun is high, the cobblestones warm beneath your feet, and the air carries the scent of olive groves and distant sea spray. You are in Pompeii, but not in its final hours. No, this is before the eruption, before the ash, before silence. It hums with life. Merchants call out in several languages. Schoolboys recite their lessons aloud. Bronze bells jingle as carts roll past, their ruts worn into the stone by years of use. Pompeii, in the 1st century CE, is a thriving, prosperous town, a blend of Roman, Oscan, Greek, and Etruscan influences. You pass fountains where travelers sip water from worn basins. Statues of local gods look down from niches in the walls. They're filled with lentils, olives, dried fruit, stewed meats, and sometimes wine spiced with honey. The painted fresco above the stall shows dolphins and ships, a cheerful decoration for quick meals eaten while standing. Mosaic floors shimmer beneath colonnades. A baker's shop smells of rising dough and char. The stone oven is still warm from the morning's loaves. Some are political ads. Some declarations of love. Others are jokes, insults, even poetry. High walls shield interior gardens where citrus trees grow in painted courtyards. Water gurgles from small fountains shaped like lions' heads or swans. Inside were chains attached to the wall, a space likely used to imprison or punish. Small rooms with stone beds, and above them, faded frescoes of couples medacked. These weren't art for art's sake. They were advertisements of visual menu of sorts. In another villa, the remains of 2 adults and a child were found in what had been a storeroom. Their skeletons curled against amphorae of wine and oil. Bedrooms are arranged around shaded patios, their walls painted with intricate scenes, mythological tales, exotic landscapes, quiet domestic moments. The rhythm of daily life is ordinary, yet it hums with details that feel somehow close, familiar, even now. There is a fast food stall, or thermopolium, with its terracotta pots sunk into a stone counter. Further along, the walls speak. Hot stones fell like hail. Roofs collapsed. People fled, some carrying loaves of bread, some clutching household gods. Graffiti is everywhere, scratched into stucco, written in charcoal, even painted with care. But as the decades passed, a different kind of discovery emerged. "I was here," one reads. Virgula to her friend. "I hope your hemorrhoids are better." Exposure to air, moisture, and time slowly wears at its painted walls. Some archaeologists argue that excavation should stop, that the secrets still buried may be better left hidden, protected by the very ash that once buried them. We can peer into kitchens and baths and bedrooms, see jars still stacked on shelves, and tread the same paths worn down by Roman sandals. Celadus, the gladiator, is the girl's delight. These were not just ruins. They were homes. Lives. In the richer neighborhoods, villas stretch inward from the street. Sometimes it's found in the worn seat of a public latrine, or a drawing of a gladiator scratched by a schoolboy's hand, or a bowl of figs left uneaten. A dog still chained, a mother with her child, a man clutching a bag of coins. But there are also darker stories here, waiting beneath the surface. They lie where they fell, frozen not in agony, but in history. In one home, archaeologists discovered a secret room sealed with bricks. The brothels are more obvious. Cana's Lupanar, its house of pleasure, survives in astonishing detail. Even in death, Pompeii continued to tell stories. Because one day in 79 CE, Mount Vesuvius erupted. It began with tremors, small ones at first, but soon the sky darkened and a massive column of ash and pumice rose miles above the earth. By the second day, pyroclastic surges, waves of gas and molten debris moving faster than sound, rushed down the mountain. They smothered everything, and then silence. Pompeii disappeared, entombed beneath meters of ash and time. Forgotten, preserved. It wasn't rediscovered until the 18th century, when workers digging a canal struck painted walls underground. Excavation began slowly, haphazardly, treasure hunting more than archaeology. Hollow spaces in the ash, carefully filled with plaster, revealed human forms in haunting detail. People caught in their final breaths, some shielding loved ones, some crawling toward exits. The casts are eerie, yes, but they are quiet, too silent witnesses of an ordinary day turned extraordinary. Even now, as more is unearthed, skeletons, loaves of carbonized bread, entire frescoes, still bright with color, Pompeii resists final interpretation. It is both museum and mystery. One day, it may disappear again. But for now, we can walk those streets. We can read the notes scribbled on ancient walls. And when we do, we remember. History is not always written in stone monuments or epic battles. And now, let us rise from Pompeii's stillness and move softly, slowly into another world entirely. Not the grimy alleys of the slums, nor the cinder-covered streets of a buried city, but into candlelight. Into linen-draped couches and silver platters, into luxury. It's time to dine with a Roman senator. Now, imagine yourself stepping through the grand entrance of a Roman domicile, private home belonging to a senator of wealth and influence. The door is tall, inlaid with bronze, and opened by a silent line of slaves who bow their heads as you pass. Inside, the air is cool and scented with myrrh. Sunlight filters through the compluvium, a central opening in the ceiling casting soft light on the impluvium below. A shallow basin that collects rainwater. This, the atrium, is not just a hallway, but a statement of status. You see family busts on pedestals, wax death masks of honored ancestors, and mosaics underfoot so finely arranged that they appear to ripple like cloth. You are a guest here, invited to a dinner scene more than a meal. Truly an event, one that may stretch late into the night. You are led to a triclinium, the formal dining room, where 3 couches arranged in a U-shape surround a low, polished table. You recline gently on cushions, leaning on your left elbow, as was the custom, leaving your right hand free to eat. All around, there is movement, slaves gliding with pitchers of water and wine. Musicians tuning lyres, the gentle tapping of sandals across polished marble. Oil lamps flicker, and the air glows with their golden light. Peacock tongues served cold are prized delicacies, and the aroma of honey-glazed ham drifts above all. The host appears robed in a fresh white toga with a deep purple stripe, signifying senatorial rank. But more than taste, this is about display. Some dishes are sculpted to resemble animals or scenes from mythology. The secunda mensat, the desert course. One dish, perhaps, or a dancer. A boy plays the double flute. Incense burns from braziers shaped like tiny temples, filling the room with the scent of frankincense and bay. But here, in this candlelit room, the empire's upper crust drifts in a soft haze of satisfaction. Perhaps, is in hosting such a meal, the senator confirms his place in Roman society. He demonstrates generosity, education, wealth, and control. Everything about the setting, the food, the decor, the performers is calculated to impress. Served in a hollow pastry shell shaped like a phoenix, cracking it open releases steam and the scent of cinnamon. His hair is carefully curled, his demeanor smooth and confident, rehearsed in both politics and hospitality. Tonight's meal will unfold in 3 acts. Some begin to loosen their tunics, laughing gently, wine loosening their tongues. The conversation turns toward politics, poetry, or philosophy. The first course, the gestatio, arrives on gleaming trays, eggs sprinkled with fish sauce, small savory pastries, olives dusted with herbs, sea urchins, and perhaps even dormice stuffed with minced meat, herbs and pine nuts roasted and delicately presented, dates stuffed with almonds, honey cakes, and nuts, candied violets, snow, brought down from the mountains and mixed with fruit syrups, all accompanied by a thicker, spiced wine, less refreshing, more contemplative. Every joke, every compliment, every glance is measured. You compliment the wine, noting its Falernian origin, and the host smiles pleased by your familiarity with such rare vintages. There is Mulsum to wine, sweetened with honey served cool in glass beakers etched with patterns. On the wall behind you, a painted scene. Dionysus reclining on a tiger, surrounded by nymphs. Above the doors, the meal slows. Plates are cleared. Guests shift lazily on their couches. A final libation is poured to the gods. Small favors rings. Combs, carved figurines may be gifted to the guests as tokens of the evening. Carvings of grapevines and laurel branches. You sip your wine, its sharpness softened by honey, and listen to the laughter echoing off polished stone. Conversation flows, but always carefully. To dine in Rome at this level is not merely to eat, is to perform. Then comes the prima mensa, the main course. Slaves emerge in a procession, bearing trays of roasted meats, boar with dates, peacock with saffron glaze, fish arranged to mimic sea serpents. There are vegetables too, though not as lavishly treated. Asparagus dressed with oil and pepper, lentils simmered with vinegar and leeks, cabbage flavored with cumin. The food is abundant and artfully arranged. As the guests recline, and then figs. A poet is summoned. This is not merely luxury, it is identity. You glance around. Eventually, outside, the city is quiet. The poor are sleeping in crowded insulae or gathered in the flickering corners of late-night taverns. And yet, even in this moment of indulgence, one is reminded subtly, quietly, that all things are fleeting. A mosaic on the floor reads, Memento Mori. Remember that you must die. Because in Rome, no matter how grand the feast, how golden the cup, or how fragrant the incense, time marches on. And even the most opulent meal must eventually end. And now, the oil lamps have dimmed. Outside its doors, the narrow alleys of the Suburra sleep uneasily. Somewhere, a dog barks in the distance. Somewhere else, the Tiber laps slowly at its banks. The silver platters are cleared, the couches left empty, and the once lively Roman home lies quiet beneath the stars. But you are far away now, to the firelit nightmare of Nero's burning city, to the silent, ash-covered ruins of Pompeii, and finally to the quiet elegance of a senator's banquet. We have wandered together through the uneven streets of ancient Rome, from the creaking top floors of crowded tenements. In each place, we paused not to gawk, not to judge, but to listen. Strangely familiar. The quiet grief of a mother clutching her child in Pompeii. The fatigue of a porter climbing 5 flights to his rented room. The slow pride of a poet reciting under candlelight as the wealthy recline in velvet silence. To hear the rhythm of lives so distant, and yet, these were real people. They squinted into the morning sun. They scrubbed their hands with sand. They waited in line for bread. They gossiped, they worried, they loved, they lived, and were forgotten. Remember that you carry these echoes with you. That history is not just marble columns or battlefields, but the shared memory of being human. And yet, in fragments of mosaic and ink, plaster and bone, they whisper to us still. Not loudly, not urgently, but softly like the flicker of a dying lamp or the hush of a footstep across worn stone. So as you drift, now, into sleep. Of eating, cleaning, walking, wondering, of surviving. Tonight, the Roman world is behind you gently, respectfully closed. The sounds fade, the clink of amphorae, the low murmur of prayers at a household shrine, the rustle of linen in the night air. All that remains is the calm, the stillness, and the comfort of knowing you are here, in the present where the fires have long since gone out. Rest now, sleep as the city sleeps. And let the dust of history settle, quiet and undisturbed, around your dreams. Good night. And now, the oil lamps have dimmed, the couches left empty, and the once lively Roman home lies quiet beneath the stars. Together, through the uneven streets of ancient Rome, from the creaking top floors of crowded tenements, to the firelit nightmare of Nero's burning city, to the silent, ash-covered ruins of Pompeii, and finally, to the quiet elegance of a senator's banquet. Outside its doors, the narrow alleys of the Suburra sleep uneasily. Somewhere, a dog barks in the distance. Somewhere else, the Tiber laps slowly at its banks. The silver platters are cleared, but you are far away now. The stillness and the comfort of knowing you are here, in the present where the fires have long since gone out. We have wandered now, as the city sleeps, into sleep. Remember that you carry these echoes with you. That history is not just marble columns or battlefields, but the shared memory of being human. We pause not to gawk, strangely familiar. The quiet grief of a mother clutching her child in Pompeii. It's the fatigue of a porter climbing 5 flights to his rented room. It's the slow pride of a poet reciting under candlelight. As the wealthy recline in velvet silence, not to judge, but to listen. In each place, they scrubbed their hands with sand. They waited in line for bread. In fragments of mosaic and ink, plaster and bone, they whispered to us still. They gossiped, they worried, they loved. To hear the rhythm of lives so distant and were forgotten. These were real people, not urgently. They squinted into the morning sun. They lived, cleaning, walking, wondering, and yet not loudly. The Roman world is behind you gently, respectfully closed. The sounds fade. The clink of amphorae, the low murmur of prayers at a household shrine, the rustle of linen in the night air. But softly like the flicker of a dying lamp, or the hush of a footstep across worn stone, so as you drift, of eating, of surviving. Tonight, all that remains is the calm, quiet and undisturbed, around your dreams. Rest now. Sleep, and let the dust of history settle. Good night.